All right, Coach. Hey, everybody. This is Real Sports Live. This is Mark Molina. We're here with another episode of the Sideline Sit Down, and we have today Brownsville Hanna football coach and athletic coordinator Mark Guest. Coach, thank you for joining us today.
Oh, thank you for having me. It's my pleasure.
All right. Hey, Coach. First of all, just how's everything going with you? How's family? Everything on the lockdown? Just how have you kind of tackled it? How have you unwinded a little bit? Just kind of how you been?
Oh, we've been doing great. Thank God. We've been able to keep ourselves away from that stuff, and then my extended family and on my wife's side, and then my family, my mom and dad and brother and everybody. They've all been doing really good. So everybody's doing great. We're just trying to keep practicing the social distancing stuff and washing our hands and doing everything we can to make sure that we're staying as safe as we can.
Yeah. Of course, everybody's has a lot of extended time off and everything. And for some people, it's they've taken it pretty good. Is there anything that you've kind of done, personally with some of the time?
Well, I mean, I've been going into the office for a long time now,
Nice.
for about 5-6 weeks now. After the first week, I was going stir crazy. I needed to get on a computer, and of course, due to everybody being at home, my wife teaches, so she needed the computer, and my daughter needed her computer. So I mean, they were working, so I needed to get somewhere where I could work. And being on a little old phone, man, those smartphones are great, but they're not very good for working when it comes to trying to get football stuff done. So I ended up going into the office, and I've been getting a lot of stuff done. It's been really good.
Yeah. Speaking of that, I know there's a lot of locker rooms with a close knit, like kind of like family with the athletes and whatnot. But you guys are pretty close as well with a lot of your kids. Just how have you kept in touch? How have the athletes kind of taken it? You and your coaching staff. I know you guys are all pretty close knit. How has everybody reacted?
It's kind of strange because our last communication with one another with the kids was at our city track meet.
Mm-hmm.
So with that, that was the last time we got a chance. We didn't get to come back after spring break, so we haven't seen them since before we left for spring break. And as far as in person, but we have been able to meet via Zoom and get a lot of good stuff done as far as offensive and defensive stuff done, team meetings and different things. So we're just trying to keep it in as much touch as we can with them via the Remind app, via Zoom. And now with the new changes the UIL came out with, we're going to be able to see them on June 8th, and we just can't wait.
Yeah, I was gonna bring that up for you. For the athletes and the marching band, those guidelines have come out. I know it's kind of ongoing. They might change, they might not, but from what we know now, there's a lot of limitations put on just you as a coach. Just what do you think of those limitations they came out? And I know it's good overall just to be back, but looking at everything, how do you view it?
I think coaches and most coaches and most people that really know coaches know that we're very well adjusted people. We have to adjust to different things on the fly all the time, and that's our job is to be able to do those things and adjust during a game to what the opponent is doing to us. So it really doesn't matter. Every time there's a rule change, the coaches do a great job of adjusting to those rules and making do with what we have, because athletics is a great thing for kids, and it's a reason why a lot of kids come to school. And we just want to give them the best opportunity that we can for them to be successful on the playing field, which translates into great success in the classroom. So we're going to adjust, and yeah, we've got some limitations, but we don't allow that to bother us. We're just gonna adjust and do what we have to do in order to stay in compliance with what they're asking us to do, but more importantly, to keep our kids safe and keep their families safe at home. Because the last thing we want is for one of our kids to have it, pass it to someone else who takes it home to their family, and now you've got two families sick. So we're trying to keep anybody from getting it. We don't want anybody to take it home and give it to their siblings, their parents, their grandparents, and just make sure that everybody's staying safe as we can. Because if this thing starts to explode again, then we're going to lose what we've been trying so hard and hoping so hard, to have in the fall, which is a football season.
Yeah, for sure. Just another, heading into summertime hurdle. It seems like during your tenure at Hanna, you've had a couple of those. Whether it been through getting your staff together or a shorter season. Because I know when you came in 2016, I believe you came in, hit the ground running. Didn't really have like that full spring summertime with your kids. I mean, it seems like you've been through little things before. It just seems like another hurdle for you. So taking it in stride. Just talk to me about your time at Hanna. I mean, how you've kind of come in like that and then built it to where you guys have come up to now.
Well, I'm really thankful to BISD and the opportunity, that I've been given to not only at Veterans to start that school off, and then as the athletic director, but now at Hanna. They've been very good to me, and I try to do a great job for them in return. I got the job, in early July when I started there, which, we didn't get a full summer, but we just got to get going and get everything started at least before the season started. I mean, we didn't have a great record, but I think the expectation was set, and we started doing, the kids started doing what the expectation that was set for them was. And, once everybody bought in, then the second year, we started getting those wins. And of course we get into the playoffs and have a real good game with Edinburgh Vela that goes down to the wire. And, we really wanted to be playing, more extended time, but, it wasn't meant to be that year. But I think that was just the catalyst and the work ethic those kids put in at that time. Matt Garcia's and some of these other guys that really set the tone as seniors for that 2018 season. That they really set the tone for those guys, and those kids really learned from those seniors and really understood what work ethic was and how they need to work in the off season in order to get ready for the season. And they bought in, they took care of business, and we had some great rewards from that year in 2018. We lost a bunch of seniors from that team, and so of course this past year our record wasn't great, but on the other hand, we did beat a couple of playoff teams in non-district, and then we get into district, and a couple of games that we lose are by less than one score, and we only needed one more win to get in the playoffs. So we had things still on the verge of getting in for a third year in a row. It wasn't in the cards. It wasn't meant to be. So we'll take the realignment and move on.
Yeah. Go back and backtrack here a little bit. I mean, you talk about that first year. You have a couple of good wins later in the season, and then you go into 2017, and then you have that victory against Harlingen. I think you have a win against Los Fresnos, and then you get into the playoffs, and the game that people still talk about to this day with that Vela and that 50 some odd yard field goal. Going into that summer, just kind of, we talked about it before. You kind of compare that team to maybe the team you had this year. They're not quite there yet. You have some young guys with a lot of promising attributes to them coming into the next year. Well, what was that summer like? I mean, that offseason like for you coming into the 2018 season that turned out to be the greatest Hanna season in history, depending on who you talk to. Maybe some of the older timers will think back in the day there was a team that there was that. But let's talk about you guys. How was that transition into the 18 season?
Well, after making the playoffs and then losing that tight ball game, like you said, on a 56-yard field goal to Vela, and we still had an opportunity to kick a 51-yarder or so to try to get the win, with just 3 ticks left on the clock, but it was into the wind, so it wasn't meant to be. But our kid gave it a great try, and just to be able to get the ball into field goal position with only 8 seconds or however many seconds left was a feat in itself. Joe Martinez made a great catch in order to get us to that point. So among 3 defenders. So, I mean, it was awesome. But after that loss, I think the kids that were juniors, and we had a lot of juniors then, they decided that they were going to do everything they could in order to get past that first round playoffs. I mean, they really wanted that district championship. And a lot of those kids in that junior class that year had played Little League football together. So they had, some of those guys had played together for a long, long time. And they really wanted to go out with a bang. And, approaching the offseason, that's what they did. I mean, they became leaders. Some of them vocal, most of them by example. But they did have the expectation, and they were such good friends in that class that they all had the expectation that they were all going to show up and they were going to get the job done. And all spring long, they had bought into the weight program and they got a lot stronger. In the summer strength and conditioning program, they ended up having very good attendance and they did a great job of working. I mean, those guys worked hard, man. They worked their tails off. But just because they wanted that prize, they wanted that gold football, and everybody was saying they couldn't do it. So they wanted to prove everybody wrong, and I think they did a pretty good job of it. But those guys, going in, I had a new offensive coordinator with Coach Damian Vela, and then of course the defensive coordinator I brought over from veterans that had worked with me over there, JC Ramirez. Those two guys do a great job for us. And they do a great job with the kids and with game plan and everything. So, just having those two guys there also helps us immensely.
Yeah, for sure. And I don't know what it was. It's everything started to click. I know we came in that week one. I just kind of remember that season, how it all kind of unfolded. We had McCallum Memorial, big impressive win there. You took the one loss against Vela, but you went into San Antonio against Amarillo Tascosa. Everybody kind of remembers that one. I kind of remember being in the office. It was kind of early on a Saturday, and I'm going through the scores, and they're like, "Hey, let's take a call in." And I remember looking at everything the way it unfolded, and I was like, I was in shock. Like, not only did you guys beat them, but you guys went in there and you kind of pushed them around a little bit. Was it at that time where you kind of felt like, hey, this team was special, or were you seeing like signs of it going into that game? I mean, how surprising was it to see y'all's performance that week?
Well, I'm always of the opinion that no matter the talent level of my team, I'm always of the impression or of the belief that we can play with anybody. And I think I had a feeling that we could play with those guys, even though they had, several D1 guys on there and they ran that triple option. I just still had a feeling that we had the kids and the mindset in order to go in that game and win that game. Now, I know nobody else in the state of Texas gave us a shot to win that thing. But the one thing that we had worked on in that offseason and up until that game was our physicality and making sure that we were not going to be out physical, that people were going to push us around, that we were going to, because of the strength gains that we had, that we could battle anybody on the field. All we have to do is what we're coached to do and execute when you're supposed to execute, and great things will happen. Yeah, you're going to have some hiccups here and there and blown assignments, but if you can minimize those things and just play your tail off and give great effort all the time on every play, even if you make a mistake, something good could still happen. Mm-hmm. So we just went into that game with that mindset, and the kids, because we had played with Edinburgh Vela that second game, because we had beaten a great storied Valley program in McCallum Memorial, and just because of those two games, by the time we got to Tascosa, they believed, they knew we should have won that Vela game, and it wasn't meant to be, so it didn't happen. But they wanted to make sure that they went in to this game knowing that it was against a school from a region where we could only meet them in the state championship game if we even met them in the playoffs, that we're, because of realignment, we're having to play. But I think it was a shock for both of us, for them and for us.
Yeah, and just looking at the way the bracket came out, mm-hmm. What was your thoughts when you saw Tascosa move it? I think they went into the regional final that year. or they won their region, I believe. I think
Yes.
they did. Just to see that, and I mean, it had to have been kind of a, I don't want to say bittersweet, but having beat them, seeing them do that, I mean, it had to have been kind of a feather in the cap to you, being like, yeah, we beat that team, and there they go to the Final Four. I mean, just
Yeah, it was. I mean, Coach Plunk and he's the head coach over there. He's actually from Kilgore, Texas, which is 10 miles from where I grew up. And so he knows actually a lot of my cousins that went to school there in Kilgore. And we just figured that out before the game on the field. And, so he knows a lot of my family. And, we had talked about that, the only time we could meet would be in the state championship game. And, once our seasons kept rolling on pretty good, we were both texting back and forth almost every week, hey man, keep it rolling. Good job, encouraging one another. And, just trying to see if we could meet again, because we certainly both wanted to do that, because we knew it would be in a state championship game would be the only way. So, yeah, we took that loss to Brandeis in the Dome there in San Antonio, and they kept winning. And, and I was in touch with him and gave him some phone calls and texts, and they made it all the way to the state semifinals, and they end up losing to the town where I grew up, Longview. They end up losing to them by 3. I mean, it was a close game, and at the end, and they almost got to that state championship game. So they had another great run this year as well. So of course the result of our game was a little different, but they got a great program. They do.
Yeah, looking at that 2018 team was as stacked and as built of a team that as I ever covered. You have Jose Cruz, great linebacker. Brandon Esteves was coming into his own. He had a really great season there on anchoring that good defense. And then on offense, you had Cesar Mencia in the backfield, and then Victor Campos he was really coming into his own there as a junior. Just overall, just the way that team was built, stacked and ready to win, as any team that I've covered. Just what was the dynamic of that team, the locker room feel, coaching that team? Just what was that feel like for you, day in and day out, going out there with them?
Well, as I kind of mentioned earlier, those guys have been playing together, some of them for a long time, and they were a great bunch of guys to be around. They were sophomores my first year there. A couple of them were on varsity. Most of them were on JV. And they end up, I guess, that group as juniors ended up winning the district championship on JV. And we felt, once we added those with the kids that had played varsity, that we were going to have a pretty scrappy team. And, you want to have, every once in a while, I guess in practice sometimes you don't want it, but you expect to have some disagreements between players. But these guys, man, they just wouldn't do that. They were all friends. They got on each other, but they didn't fight amongst one another. And that was great in the fact that when we were on the field and in the huddle, we didn't have to worry about bickering and anything like that going on that's going to tear a group apart, because they were too busy trying to win, and they wanted to win. So, when we had guys like on the offensive line, like Sebastian Garcia and Abraham Coronado, those guys, they're just such level-headed guys that very, very intelligent, not only in the classroom, but also very football smart. And then, of course, when we had talented guys like Vic and Cesar, of course, and Cesar, man, that kid worked his tail off. That's the hardest working kid I've ever had. He wasn't talented because he was gifted. He was talented because he earned it, and that's the biggest thing for him. And he had the desire to win like nobody else. I mean, that's all he wanted to do. He just wanted to win. Mm-hmm. And then, of course, on the defensive side of the ball, we had a really, really good secondary with Brian Duran and Andreas Sustaeta, Lee Guevara, Alcy Flores, and Johnny Aleman. Those 5 guys, man, they learned something new during their junior year, and I've never seen a group apply it as well as a group as those 5 guys did their senior year. And
great open field tacklers, a lot of them. I know Lee Guevara, he was a great open field tackler, big kid, big tall kid, fast. He was a track guy, so he was he really helped, especially in some of those playoff games where there was some big receivers. Sure. I remember in Eagle Pass, like he's a
yeah, he gave up a play, but he made a couple of plays when it really mattered. Yes,
yeah.
Sure.
So you just had a lot of playmakers out there, and then you had the Swiss Army knife of Miguel Payan. That kid did it all. I mean, just
oh my goodness.
just so much of that team. It was just special. There's a lot of teams that go down in the Laurel Valley football. Me personally, I believe that's going to be one of them.
And it should be. I tell you what, it's a good bunch of kids, and just very, very well behaved. The Amarillo trip was really a test drive for. We were hoping for the playoffs if we got to play. I mean, we really felt we were going to be playing, and so that was kind of a test drive to see how they behaved overnight and in a hotel and pregame warm-ups, the day before, walkthroughs and all those kind of things. That was kind of a test drive for that Tascosa game for the playoffs. And man, I tell you what, they learned a lot. We learned a lot, and great things happened.
Yeah, and you talk about you said it a couple times on this broadcast here, not meant to be. You look at the Brandeis game, you guys come out like gangbusters, jump up on them early, and it just football's a crazy game. What one missed extra point or failed conversion kind of does, how it kind of for you guys, it just seemed like everything kind of changed with the one extra point. It seemed like you kind of chased it there a little bit, and it was all the difference there. I mean, just as you're on the sideline going through all that, just what's going through your head.
Well, football is a game of inches, and we talk about that all the time. And, I always tell my kids two things, there's two things you cannot control. You cannot control the weather, and you cannot control the officiating. And, regardless of how that thing turned out, there was a call that shouldn't have been made, but it was. And I mean, that's part of football. It's part of the game. And we have to deal with that. We have to live with that. But, we also tell the kids, it doesn't come down to one call. There were other mistakes that we made throughout the game that contributed to either a score for them or us, not getting or us not getting it in either way. So, it's life is what it is. You're going to make mistakes. You got to learn from them, and things aren't always going to go your way, but you're darn sure going to get what you earn. And that's the way we preach it at Hanna. You're going to get what you earn.
Yeah, and I know coming in, this team, expectations are expectations, especially when you have a big season like that. This team full of a lot of young kids, a lot of veterans moved on. You probably had two of the more talented players in the district, in Victor and Brandon Esteves. But it seems like late in games sometimes they just weren't able to put it all together. Young kids, young guys. I mean, you still fell short of the playoffs, even by one game, as tough as the district as it was. But, just what was the silver lining seeing a lot of these up-and-coming kids this season?
Well, the great thing was, we played a lot of sophomores. We played, I think, 10, 11 sophomores, depending on which game it was. But we played a lot of sophomores that are going to have some great, valuable experience for their junior year. And then, of course, we also played a lot of juniors last year that are going to be coming back as seniors. So, we got some really, good football players, some really valuable time as youngsters in order to try to really be able to win that district championship this year, which is what our side is set on.
Awesome, Coach. And lastly, just kind of wanted to touch on it. Just talk about Brownsville football as a whole. Last couple of years, their programs have been getting more and more competitive. I mean, you see you guys, obviously Brownsville veterans, Brownsville Pace, and even, the Porters being a little bit more competitive in their district. The Vedas, it looks like they're on the up and up, coming back with their new coaching staff. So, I mean, just overall, just how do you view the state of Brownsville football with the competitiveness within the city right now, and just the type of talent that's come out of there in recent years?
I think the best thing was when we decided to have our schools play at the school population level that they're supposed to and the classification they're supposed to. Mm-hmm. I think that's the biggest thing, because now they're competing against schools that are their size. and it's kind of tough for kids sometimes that have 5A numbers now to compete with 6A. I mean, it's different. There's more kids, and if they're a medium or small 5A, then it's tough. Unless you got a really talented group, it's tough to compete with those 6As. So I think that was the best thing that happened several years ago. I guess I was probably the AD at the time when that started, and now of course we have four 5As and two 6As. So I think that was the best thing, and now that those schools are playing with schools their size, they're able to compete. And I think the coaches that we have in place right now, they're doing a great job of getting their kids ready to play ball. And hopefully this coming year, I know we didn't have as many teams in the playoffs last year as we did the year before, but hopefully this year we get several in and get some on a run. That's our main goal.
Yeah, the realignment was a couple of surprises there, so it's going to be very interesting for all around for the entire valley. So
Yes.
like I said, hopefully we get to a point where we do get build forward to this football season. And coach, as we set to cut off here, just what are any words encouragement? I know we like to get some of that on here for some of the athletes and everything, maybe gearing up, trying to get out there and but are also patient with it. Just parting words.
Well, I think the smartest thing you can do is make sure that you're still practicing the social distancing that's required or that should be required. I guess at this point it can be optional, but just follow the rules that are being set for us by our city governments, by our state government, to make sure that we're keeping everybody safe. Because as this thing moves on throughout the summer, if we start seeing hot spots around the state, that's one thing that could unfortunately end our football season, and that's the last thing we want. We want to be able to have our young people competing, whether it's football, whether it's volleyball, cross country. We want to see all of our sports competing in the fall. So the best thing we can do is make sure that we're still following all the guidelines that are set for us by our governing bodies.
All right. Awesome. Well, Coach, I want to thank you for the time of coming on. It's been a little bit since we talked, but it's always a pleasure.
Yes, sir.
We'll do it again soon, Coach. Everybody, thank you for watching. Make sure to follow all our social medias, Facebook, Instagram, Twitter. That's where you guys can find us, Real Sports Live. I'm Mark Molina, and for Tocayo, Mark Guess, appreciate you, Coach.
Go Eagles.
Have a good one, Coach.
All right.